Yes.
Okay, wait. So the definition of
If
corruption
I'm allowed
according
to
to the
finish,
Quran. Wait one second. Let me just
you'll
clarify.
know why.
The definition of corruption according to the Quran is doctrinal deviation. Where do you
I
get
said
this from?
that's the only reasonable, justifiable one, because corruption here, right, is going to lead to eternal damnation, right? The people that don't choose the Quran, right, and unless you're saying Allah is sending people to hell just for copy errors, right, then it has to be
No.
doctrinal deviation.
It's not necessarily just that. No.
Yeah, it can't.
Corruption in this instance is going to be understood as, we can say, purposeful if we're talking about the people that are actually scribing it. I don't believe that Allah holds people accountable for things which they don't intend. But like, let's say, for example, I'm a scribe of the Bible and I purposefully add something to the Bible, subtract something from the Bible, or change something in the Bible, regardless of whether or not there is doctrinal change, that is still corruption.
Yeah, but the people who's reading it then purposely corrupted. So the people who's believing is the one getting sent to hell.
Yeah, but
right?
they're not getting sent to hell for something that they weren't aware of. Again, I don't believe that Allah is going to, like, for example, punish like first century Christians that had their hands on a corrupted New Testament. No.
Yeah, I'm talking about modern believers.
Modern believers, yeah. The reason why they're going to be sent to hell is if they are aware of the message of Islam and Islam was correctly preached to them, and they reject the Quran and they choose their belief in their corrupted scripture, and in this instance we're talking about Christians, and their three gods, they're going to get sent to hell for that.
Yeah, but they're not getting sent to hell for believing a book with copyist errors, right? You'd agree to that?
No, it's not copyist error. No, it's not just copyist errors. Wait, hold on. Do you think a copyist error in this instance is going to be like removing entire chapters from a book? That's a copyist error?
When I say copy, wait, what do you mean copyist error? Oh, that would
like a lot
remove
of the
an entire chapter. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah, like any basic book on New Testament textual criticism talks about like generally understood passages that are corrupted. For example, the story of the adulterous woman from John 7 to John 8:11. For example, the end of the Gospel of Mark 16 verses 9 through 20, and a multitude of different other verses, even verses that are detrimental to the doctrine of the Trinity in the Bible. For example, 1 John 5:7, which is, from what I've seen in scholarship, unanimously agreed upon to be a forgery, a later forgery at that. So that last one is going to be an example of just a verse being taken out. But we also have
this is what I mean,
groups
right?
of verses being omitted or added in, sorry.
This is what I mean. If I was to grant that, if those verses are not changing the belief system, and people believe in the book, they're gonna go to sent to hell for that?
Yeah, no. They are changing the belief system. Like, for example, the ending of Mark. The ending of Mark, the resurrection narrative, is very theologically significant to Christians. The end of the Gospel of Mark, the resurrection narrative. That's extremely important.
1 John 5:7, is that what you're talking about?
No. I'm not talking about 1 John 5. But 1 John 5:7 is really important. That is theological. That's an example of doctrinal corruption to the book. But I'm talking about the long ending of Mark 16 verses 9 through 20. Not only is this a heap of verses being added to the text, but also this has theological significance. It talks about the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
You're just saying long ending of Mark is changing the doctrine. Can you
no, it's
substantiate
that? Yeah, it's theologically significant. The resurrection narrative. Let me just pull it up.
The resurrection narrative. You're not substantiating. That's why I'm confused with what you're saying.
Don't worry, we're gonna pull it up and we're gonna read it. Go ahead.
Also, quick point regarding trying to say that corruption is only what is entails a theological change. That actually becomes impossible to identify if that's going to be the definition of corruption. Because according to you, any verse could be added or removed as long as it doesn't contradict your assumption of the text. Then according to you, there is no corruption. So it becomes actually impossible to arrive at the conclusion of a contradiction of a corruption, even though the entire text could be corrupted. So that's why this definition of corruption is very flimsy, and nobody should be saying the corruption is just theological change.
because if you're faithfully articulating my position, right? So basically, the believers that believe in this so-called corrupted text, they're worshiping the God exactly how the people who worshipped in the origin point of the religion, right? If they're worshiping the same, is Allah sending them to hell for that?
First of all, that's a loaded question. We're talking about whether your text is preserved or not. You mentioned.
Your
One second.
corruption
Slow down.
from
Slow down.
your standpoint,
You
if people
mentioned,
believe in
brother,
it, they're
slow
gonna
down.
go to hell. Like that's the fact.
You mentioned that, hey, I'm going to define corruption as theological, purposeful change, right?
Yeah, doctrinal deviation.
Doctrinal deviation. Good. Now, if I point to any verse in the New Testament, how do you know whether or not it has been added or not? According to your own standard, you actually have to be agnostic on the whole New
How do
Testament.
I know it's
One
been
second,
added or not?
brother, calm down. You have to be agnostic on the entire New Testament because you're not actually looking at the evidence. All you're looking at is, hey, does this contradict my notion or my understanding of said scripture? If it doesn't, then according to you, then it cannot be corruption under that definition. So that's why it's very flimsy and it's very vague and doesn't get us to conclusion, historical conclusions to say the least. So, Cora, go ahead, continue if you're mentioning.
The point that's
Mark.
being made here, so in Mark, the long ending of Mark, these are extremely theologically significant verses. This is the resurrection account, according to you guys, where it talks about Jesus appearing to Mary Magdalene. And then he's talking about how believers are going to be able to drive out demons and speak in tongues and so on and so
كيف بدي أتعلم الصلاة من رسول الله؟
جت لزوج
أي إنسان فلتت منا الساعة